Okay, so John Ray is quite a flamboyant character. He's an attorney and he's been operating on um, Long Island probably for decades. I don't know if he's from New York or actually on a Long Islander in particular. He's representing Shannon Gilbert's family. Shannon Gilbert's family have been plagued with tragedy, and they have this kind of, it's just this gothic horror feel surrounding Shannon Gilbert's family. Shannon Gilbert is a woman who deserves kind of this legendary status in a way in her, posthumously, because she disappeared after going to a call out on Long Island. She had a driver take her out to a sex worker job, and subsequently she was freaking out and she's phoned 911. She's knocked on several doors in the vicinity of this little beach enclave in Gilgo Beach, which is part of the easterly side of Long Island. And this 911 call, just inflames so much controversy and conspiracy. However, she was never found at the time of her disappearance, and it wasn't until 2011, I think a year later, a young officer had decided to go out and search for her, and he in the course of doing that found these other bodies. And this is when the Long Island serial killer trope was born. And there are 11 women's bodies, 11 people's bodies that were found out there. 10 of them officially attributed to being murder victims. Shannon Gilbert, I don't believe she's now named a murder victim, although at first her death was called as just accidental, to exposure or something, and then she's been examined again and a bone in her neck is discovered to have been broken. And it's popular nowadays to call her a victim of the Long Island serial killer. I'm not sure that I believe that, but I will get into that. And initially, Rex Heuermann, I'm just going to call him Rex because I don't want to keep having to say that last name, and he was initially charged with 4 murders. There's been 2 more women's murders attributed to him. They were found further along Long Island nearer the Hamptons end. So I'm interested in just what people think about Asa Alarup, who is the divorced wife now. She's divorced Rex Heuermann. So his ex-wife Asa, I think she's his ex-wife, and his daughter Victoria, because of the press conference delivered by, let's actually call it a presentation delivered by John Ray. So John Ray is an attorney who's been representing Shannon Gilbert's family, initially her mother, but her mother has since been murdered by one of her daughters. He represents the family, and he styles himself as this advocate. He's very flamboyant. He puts out a lot of opinion. He does a lot of his own investigation, and he is saying that he has vetted people that can be named as witnesses in the Heuermann case. But this is all, again, just as opinion, and we don't have this as evidence, okay? That I'll get into that a bit later. In fact, I've made a video about all of this background anyway. And you probably know it. A lot of true crimers are following this case, even if they're really initially enamored with other cases. What John Ray has come out to allege, or to, he's just, is it allegations or is he speculating, that Rex Heuermann's 26-year-old daughter, Victoria, is possibly some sort of accomplice, okay? Because of some social media accounts. So things that she's followed and posted on her Tumblr accounts and things like that. They're saying that, this is very odd. And they've actually gotten Dr. Gary Brucato as part of this presentation as well. He's kind of peddling away, or he's sort of downplaying his involvement, saying, hey, I'm just there to give some opinion on, vagaries and just suppositions. We're back. Yes, we're back, Francesca. Sorry about that. It was just such a car crash. So, yeah, have you watched the John Ray presentation, Francesca? I've watched most of it. I think I've watched up to sort of maybe halfway. I don't know how long he spoke for. Watched most of it. Do you think it's just? Is it fair? Is it meddling? Is it, so Fran is very much invested in Long Island serial killer. Were you interested in it, Fran, before Rex was arrested? So I was just going to redo the little bit that I was saying, because, a lot of the contentious issues here are, was Asa actually around? Does she have guilty knowledge? Does Victoria have guilty knowledge? Is anyone involved to any degree, or just simply through any sort of knowing? You could say that because Asa Ellerup raced 6 days after arrest, she was divorcing Rex. You could argue it's because deep down she knows it's true, even though now she's saying, I'm going to wait to see all the facts. I mean, this could be because of her Peacock deal. I'm going to wait to see all the facts, and I don't believe he's capable of it. But, the divorce could also be because, they do have assets, even though I think Rex was probably struggling commercially and not doing as well as he would have liked. He wasn't a big success, but they did own several properties, and she would be able to get resources, and it could be a way of protecting resources. You were thrilled when, hi Sophia, you were thrilled, Fran, when Rex was caught, yeah. And we know there was a sting operation on Rex for maybe a year before his really exciting arrest on the streets of Manhattan near his office block, because of phone data, electronic data. So this was amazing, wasn't it? We'll try and let it go for now, that much further into the past, perhaps if they'd been more astute, more willing, more focused, more caring, more driven, they could have arrested Rex much earlier because of, the details around his car, etc. You thought he'd never be caught, yeah. So Rex was arrested 10 months ago in July 2023. We knew about this, I'll have to call them just a collection of women's remains, people's remains, because there was also a male figure in there. But we've known about these remains since 2011, I believe, because of a young officer deciding to go searching for Shannon Gilbert's remains. She went missing in 2010 after responding to a request to go out as a sex worker to a little place near Gilgo Beach in a private enclave of homes. And she quite infamously phoned 911. She was knocking on people's doors. Police responded very poorly, didn't seem to give a flip, and didn't find her. So an officer has gone out later just to search for her with his canine and has found her body, found her remains. Initially, she was judged to be a victim of just terrible circumstance, dying of exposure. Perhaps she has just freaked out. She's run away. She's got caught up in the terrible marshland there. It's very wild off these parkways out on the eastern side of Long Island. And in a later examination of her body, it's found that a bone in her neck has been broken, but I don't think she's officially named as a murder victim. So people officially think of Long Island serial killer if all of these remains are part of one person's murderous lifestyle, then it's 10 people, but it could be 11. So the people that were found, and initially, out of the people that were found, initially Rex Heuermann was charged with 3 murders and then 4. And Megan Waterman, when she was reported missing, Asa apparently was in Maryland. So that was in June 2010. Asa was on one of her little travels. When Melissa Bartholomew was last seen, these are important expressions, okay? Went missing, last seen. When Melissa Bartholomew was last seen, Asa was on one of her trips to her country of origin, which is Iceland. Now, there's contention about her. People say, oh, she must have been a young 20-year-old, 20-something, confused, vulnerable woman when Rex met her. No. Asa grew up in South Farmington, near Massapequa Park, where Rex grew up. She went to school there. She has history there. She's a Long Islander for all intents and purposes. Her father is, in Long Island still. She has a sister there who has a family. I'm going to talk a little bit about them a little bit later. But when Amber Costello vanished, Asa was on one of her trips to New Jersey in September 2010. And the other person that Rex was initially charged with was Maureen Brainard Barnes. She was last seen in July 2007. Subsequently, women's remains, women that were found further north than Gilgo Beach area, were found around the Hampton area and the Manorville area. So their names are Jessica Taylor. So she's a lady that her remains were found off Halsey Manor Road in Manorville 20 years after her disappearance on July 26, 2003. And Sandra Costilla, so we have Amber Costello, but we've got Sandra Costilla. She was found 8 years later off the Ocean Parkway in 2011. Sandra was found nude, decapitated near a sump. She was missing her hands and her tattoo had been mutilated. We're going to talk about this. Peaches, who went missing June 28, 1997, has had to be dubbed Peaches because of a tattoo of a peach with two little drops coming from it on her left breast. She was found in 97. More remains were found in 2011 during these searches. They weren't identified as also belonging to Peaches until 5 years later in 2016. And also the remains of a toddler were found. They, by DNA, were discovered to be the child of Peaches. About the tattoos, that's interesting, isn't it? Because of this sort of manifesto of Rex's, his plan, his kill plan, okay? So we'll discuss that too, because that's been released recently. I've had a really brief look at that. So we know in 1997, the person who took the life of Peaches and her child didn't try to destroy her tattoo. In 2011, tattoos were being mutilated or even removed. So what is it about Victoria Heuermann? Is it just because of things she's been exposed to? It's interesting because on this plan, one of the things about post cleanup is destroy book. Could it be the book that was left on the kitchen island bench at Massapequa Park? Is it just exposure? Is it that throughout Victoria's life, at these points in development where we know people develop parts of their personality and develop sexuality, was it because she was exposed to this monster Rex that she's become a person that disappears into fantasy and even anthropomorphism? Tell me if I said that wrong. When people are developing and they're exposed to certain things, it does affect who you become. If you develop any kinks, what does we know that we are nurtured, right? Which is a funny word for it, but we do say nurture, nature. This is why a lot of abusers, predators, want to get hold of and start grooming innocent, vulnerable people when they are young, when they're children, when they can shape them, when they can groom them. Furries, without the pun intended, are groomed into sexuality being involved in furrydom. People interested in the furry lifestyle often start off trying to just express themselves and be safe and they often find furrydom, people who are on the autism spectrum disorder are disproportionately represented in these communities, and already vulnerable people, when they start getting interested in things like that, are fair game for people hunting for people to groom. And they are groomed into it becoming a sexual thing. So we've just seen this presentation by John Ray. You know, is it inappropriate? Is it irresponsible? Is this guy, as he's often appeared, is this just this arrogant, narcissistic person who is using Shannon Gilbert and her traumatized family and people on the periphery of that as his springboard to cement legend for himself in the way that Dr. Dorothy Otno Lewis used her, you know, created her own niche around serial killers. I'm not going to start diverting into things. If people can be bothered and interested in what I've said in the past, you're just going to have to somehow find things in the hundreds of videos I've made on all sorts of different subjects, topics, and crimes. And I talked about her in relation to, I talked about her because she's come up in Letitia Stouck's trial and was onto that stupid wench straight away and proved to be right, as I have to say, sorry, but I often am, just like I am about YouTubers that I bag. I'm pretty much always proven correct. So I know that Fran thinks that John Ray was completely out of line. It's not his place, okay? It really isn't his place. Now, he could know more than he has exposed. So he is unafraid of a defamation case, you know. But, you know, and is he re-victimizing a victim? Is he re-traumatizing someone who's already living in deep trauma? That's the question, isn't it? Because obviously we have, you know, even if Victoria has guilty knowledge, even if she has some involvement, even obscure or oblique, I think morally we would expect people to speak up, say what they know, and just make good. And this isn't what happens, of course, and of course, well, because morally they can't. Now, maybe because they have been groomed, coerced, they're victims of narcissistic abuse, of psychological abuse, and all of this type of dynamic. So in a way, they were created to be immune and created to get enjoyment and to be sadistic, etc. Okay, or to, you know, they've just got other, you know, they've got morality that differs from a lot of other human beings on the planet. This is what makes people unsettled. I mean, look, we never know anybody. Who is it? I don't know who it is. They say there's your private, your personal, and your secret self. And that is so true. We never, ever, ever know someone. You never do. Never think you do. To be human, I believe, is to be extremely, we're obviously the center of the universe. Everything is, but we are also, it's very, I think it's more difficult for, what am I trying to say? It is more difficult for some than others to realize that you'll never be known and that you can never know someone. But, you know, anyway, I'm starting to waffle. I do have things I want to say. You know, okay, so John Ray is complaining about her peacock deal. And yeah, and perhaps he has handed her a defamation suit all of his own, because, you know, and handed it to her on a blood and guts platter. Do you think, Fran, do you think that Rex has something like, you know, possibly 50, 100 murder victims? I do. I think it's possible that he does. We know that authorities have just recently gone back to Massapequa Park, pulled it apart even more. Was this acting on a tip? What was this acting on? Was this acting on something they've discovered electronically? They know they've missed something. It would not have been easy to get that warrant again. There's two different reports. One that Victoria was at home and had to leave to go somewhere else in the state because of the search. Other reports say that she was already somewhere else when the search began. And reports are that Asa Ellerup was already out of state with her son, Chris Sheridan, who is not Rex's son. Well, why the flip has Asa not been living out of state all this time? It has always deeply concerned me that Asa, Victoria, and Chris have remained in this hellhole, in this hovel, in this absolutely terrifying place. You know, they've really clung to it. And is that just because of denial? Is it because they are just desperate and don't have anywhere? I do not believe that they couldn't have worked something out. I don't believe it. Victoria wasn't living there at the time. She must have a bolt hole somewhere, a flat. Where was she living? Chris Sheridan apparently wasn't even living there full time, because he was apparently needing to live in some sort of care home, you know, for people to try and help them be more independent, but he does have very high needs. So, you know, and she'd be in her car, sleeping in her car nearby, you know, in the neighborhood. She just couldn't leave. And I wonder why. Wouldn't you want to get as far away as possible? Now, perhaps she didn't want to go to her father's or her sister's because she didn't want to then bring the press, bring the hawkers and the gawpers to their homes. Her sister has children, her father's an elderly person. However, isn't that better than being in that putrid house? And perhaps she didn't want to, bring that attention to Heuermann's mother, who I believe is someone that she would be reportedly going to visit quite often out of state. I'm not sure if that's the home in Atlanta she would go, the place in Atlanta or not. But anywhere she goes, there would be, you know, people would find her. But I don't think it's about bringing disruption to her sister, because her sister had said several times, you know, later, you know, I haven't even heard anything from her. Sandra Costello, a woman whose remains were found up in the Hamptons. This is 1993. So, you know, if these are Rex, you can see he's just been going and going and going. I think he was 30 in 93. And he married, his first marriage was breaking up then. There's a hair of hers on a victim. There's hairs of Victoria, 2 of her hairs. I don't know if it's 2 hairs on one victim or 1 hair on 2 victims. Asa's hair, there's 3 hairs. I think maybe 3 hairs on 1 victim, something like that. Now, women shed a lot of hair, and these women had long hair. And I don't think we can, I mean, this deserves investigation though, right? I don't think we should write it off as transfer, but of course, all sorts of DNA is going to be transferred out of that house. You'd kind of expect women's hair to be anywhere that Rex has been, wouldn't you? Just thinking about what I want to say, because I've already made a video about Arthur. Do I want to repeat it? So quite a lot of extra materials have been taken out of this house, by the way. Large boxes, small boxes, big and small envelopes, parcels, you know, and taking up more plumbing. It's pretty intense. I will be very interested, as will all of you, everyone, will be interested in seeing the search warrant to see what it says. So the other thing that's happened is, of course, we've seen Rex's planning document, and you know, things were listed under headings such as problems, supplies, dump sites, pre-prep, preparation, post-event. So, you know, some problems he listed were going to be, you know, DNA, tire tread marks, fingerprints, like prints actually made with blood and things like that, and blood just tracked away with them. Any witnesses, he had mentioned, I'll get to it, any witnesses, hair and fiber, something he calls misleaders. So Rex is thinking about misleading investigations into his crime. That could be staging, couldn't it? Or, you know, yeah, that could be staging. Under supplies, things like photo film, you know, and he talks about videoing, you know, doing recon missions to video areas that he wants to work in and things like that. Photo film, acid, a burn can, a saw, you know, knives and things, police scanner, booties and hairnet. You know, he's now starting to think about trace evidence, isn't he? He's really trying to get into the investigators' methods and think about how we can be caught, because clearly this is it in his life. You know, being an architect, being, you know, that's his identity too, very strongly. He really is someone that needs to be special. So even though it must be the most boring, tedious thing, he's sort of focused on, hey, knowing about planning permits, ways to get around council legislation to help architects out. And he really was proud of that. And I don't know, he's just such a demon. Pre-prep included things like recon the areas, thinking, you know, make sure you check weather. Daybell wanted to check the weather, didn't he? Video camera, pick up something or other. Pickup zone, the pickup zone. So where he's going to pick up his victims. He was very aware of things that maybe had put him in jeopardy of being caught before. I wonder how aware he was of how pear-shaped it went, that call to the girl, I can't remember what her name was, Francesca would know, that, you know, the way that he could have been caught. So he had witnesses, He hadn't managed to do anything. He hadn't managed to take a girl away because her boyfriend and a friend had decided to run a bit of a scam. I mean, what fools. Where they would, have her advertise services. The person would answer, come in to their flat, and then they would set up the scenario where a guy would burst in and pretend to catch her and be very distressed, and off the John would run after, but of course leaving behind the money that he'd paid on arrival, so that she didn't have to perform anything, and they could just take the money. And in one of these schemes, Rex had been seen. He was described as this ogre type man. His vehicle was described. Anyway, under preparation, set up this, to set it all up, the setup, the stage. He wanted to create an altar-like scene. He talks about building a table, having hard points, so places to secure victims by, having a holding area. Post-event, he had things like, change my tires, so now they can come and try and, check tire tread, but I've changed my tires, so it doesn't match. Burn your gloves, dispose of pictures, have the story set. Now, is this the story set for his family? Why he wants them to go away, or what he was doing while they were away? Is this the story for the cops if they came knocking? Is this the story for colleagues? Because we know through his interview with the magazine that I watched, it's been taken down. It was utterly fascinating. I hope everyone watching this got to see it. He, was it for colleagues? Because colleagues have come out to say he would talk about, I'm going hunting up in Massachusetts or what have you, right? I really think he wanted to set up something permanent, probably on his brother's land, where he had everything he needed, a bunker, holding rooms, kill rooms and the like, torture chambers. But what were these stories set? What were these stories having to be set for? He talked about things like, having to clean the body, so making sure he cleaned out cavities, removed marks and tattoos, and just, to make sure he could package them for transport so that, obviously they could be scattered around. Certainly he's already done that to victims, hasn't he? Dismembered them and scattered them around. And he also made notes about, exits from highways, other things about organized versus disorganized killers and crimes, and talking about, things like Stockholm syndrome and mutilation. Now, Stockholm syndrome, it could be said that his daughter and his wife suffer Stockholm syndrome, okay? We don't know. This is what I'm always saying, isn't it? It should be Humanimal channel, we don't know, because we don't know. And he also says the more you do, the more likely you are to be caught, though, which is very interesting. So was he holding people? This is something we really need to consider. Was he holding these girls? Did he hold them in his own family home in Massapequa Park? And for how long? Now, what I wanted to bring up was, okay, sure, Asa Ellerup may have been away at the times, and therefore, just like I mean, I really don't think this means people are not accomplices, right? I could think of, we can all here think of several cases right now. Well, he was away. It doesn't mean they didn't have some sort of involvement, whether it be by some discussion, acknowledgement, some sort of accomplice type behavior, helping someone after the fact or something like that. Okay, being away means nothing to me, but sure, it might mean that they weren't there performing certain things, okay? But after being away at certain times, that's why I think language is very important, okay? We need to think of last seen, vanished, reported missing. These are vaguities, aren't they? This is vague. This does not mean there's not some crossover between these vulnerable, tragic women being anywhere near Asa before Asa left. We don't know. And the hair transfer can be just simply because it's come from Rex, whether victims were taken to the home or not. But I have a feeling the victims were in the home. Do we know that? Do you know? Oh, you have read Dr. Brucato's The New Evil. I've been meaning to get that, Fran, and read it because I'm sure it's fascinating. He's feeling the heat from his appearance. I don't feel it was responsible for him to put his foot forward, his face forward in this regard, even though he's been working with John Ray for a long time. He's kind of saying, well, I just wanted to get out there and promote the Cold Case Foundation and blah, blah, blah. Look, bad judgment. But we know that John Ray is slick. We also know, though, as good as Brucato is and knowledgeable and as interesting, he's part of this wave, this generation of men, perhaps mostly, who, this is the case in a lot of instances. What did John Howard want to be known for? They want to make a mark. They want to make their mark and be known. And sometimes, I think John Ray is probably quite a persuasive man, and he's given all sorts of assurances. And perhaps Brucato didn't know. Perhaps he said, can I read your press notes before we go live, and maybe Mr. Ray gave him something else to read and Ricardo didn't know. Who knows? I don't know, but I think it's a poor judgment. But we're not assured that when the girls went missing and when they died all happened while Asa Alarak was away. When they went missing, were murdered, and were discarded, I should say. We know nothing about that timeline, I would say, not solidly, and I want to see the evidence of these things before I decide, because jury's out. So other things in there, interestingly, destroy book and computer files. Do you think he couldn't bring himself to do it? Yeah, I think he couldn't bring himself to do it. Is it this book that was found on the counter? Computer files. Well, a lot has been recovered. What was discarded? Geez, but we know all about his searches. When he was searching for CP of 13 and 14-year-old girls, at the time, that's how old Victoria was. That should give pause for thought. We know he was searching for male Asian transsexuals, and that is description, at least at least I'd have to say transvestite, crossdresser. We don't know if there was transsexuality involved. It's a man found in women's clothing, but certainly, you know, it does, you know, give you a little hint that possibly Rex has killed all of the people that were found out, and sorry about this, found out in Galway Beach. So things to remember: destroy book, destroy computer files, sound travels, control the air in and out. Now, this is horrifying because he wants to limit the noises being made in where? In this holding cell, okay? He's also talking about limiting sound because, you know, like he says, he mentions bird noises. And is this because sounds of birds will give away his location? Perhaps he's in an area where, you know, maybe you're going to hear seabirds over birds that would reside in a particular bushland or something like that, right? You know, it's just pretty clever because that's often how things are identified, isn't it? By, you know, I've talked about the Lloyd Rainey case, who was arrested and charged with the murder of his wife Corinne, and eventually won some big cases against Western Australia police. But, you know, pollens and things played a part in identifying things about her murder. Sound travels. Get sleep before the hunt. Don't charge gas. So don't use your credit card. Use cash. Now, he's a cold motherfucker, right? Okay. We know for sure at the time of this writing, he's talking about things with hindsight about just have to look at my ass for a minute. In hindsight about see if that helps a little bit. Oh, did I make it worse? Oh, whoopsie-doo. Other murders, because he says consider hitting them around the face or the neck this time, because you know, that way, so, you know, to take them down, because something's obviously gone a bit skew for another time, right? Chillingly, use heavier rope this time. Use heavier rope in future. Light rope broke. Yeah, light rope broke. It broke under the stress. So, you know, those hard points. So fixtures where you can hang someone. He talks about hanging them by clothing, hanging them by... I'm really fucking this up, aren't I? He also said he was hunting for too long, and it means that, you know, he was seen in the area too long. Yeah, it's just fucking chilling, right? I mean, obviously this is how killers think. Hey, if I was a killer embarking on my favorite pastime, what I would probably call my number one career, yeah, I'd be thinking about a multitude of things too. But, you know, I think it just gives credence to the longevity of his crimes, and, you know, I would just say it's a fact that he's been killing for decades. And that, you know, there are a lot of other areas where bodies will be found and then attributed to Rex. I think he's renamed his channel now. It's True Crime with Nathan Adams. He's fascinated by Rex. He's someone who he's convinced that Shannon Gilbert is Rex Heuermann's victim for a few reasons. You can go and watch his videos. Now, I think I don't want to repeat what I've said in the video 10 months ago, but, you know, I do think Asa is a deal maker. And I guess something really hinges on whether John Ray is correct and whether we can believe, and I talked about this in the last time, but so just very briefly, and you probably know about it, you know, whether we can believe about the incident where an officer of the law and his swinging girlfriend at the time, so they're all swingers, and they picked up a sex worker to take up to Massapequa Park. Asa is said to have been there. Things went pear-shaped. The last that they saw was a naked woman in panic running around. It's kind of like this was kind of described and shown in a movie, Disturbia. Yeah, that kind of scenario. If you haven't seen it, it's got Shia LaBeouf in it, or Shia. Yeah. But, you know, can we believe it? But let's look at it. When Asa met Rex, he was, you know, he's been charged with murder, with a murder that occurred around the time. And at the time, Asa would have been around mid-20s to a bit later, by they finally got married in 96. And she would have been a very petite little thing. And I would say youthful looking. She's a gamine. She would have that youthful appearance at any age kind of thing, even though, you know, she clearly looks very stressed now, but she's 60 years old. She's 59 now. She'll be 60 in August. But part of the story John Ray tells back of this era and this incident was that, well, Asa didn't participate in the sex this night. She sort of disappeared. She knew what was going on and then disappeared, was because she was pregnant with Victoria. Well, Karen Vergada, whose remains were later found April 96, when she went missing in February 96, after this, apparently, allegedly after the swingers party, Asa and Rex get married. And that I feel like there's something there, maybe. I don't know. It's just that's wrong or not, because you shouldn't go on instinct, wrong or not. But he had a very brief marriage, and people are saying it's an ex-girlfriend's hair that was found, but I feel like I think it's his ex-wife's, first wife's hair also found. And then Asa and Rex were married April 96. And I think the maths. Hey, JK. Yeah, you know, I always give a little something, don't I? I've been worried about you, Johnny, so it's good to see you emerge. Maybe you've just had to have a little bit of a time out from the madness. Simply because I just hadn't seen you in chats. And other people people were asking me, did I know were you all right? So you are cared for, and your presence, when it's not consistent, it's noticed. So just letting you know. The timing is interesting, Francesca. And if, I mean, it's interesting to think about cooling off periods though, right? Did Rex meet Asa? And did he meet her in a swingers scenario, or, was there a little cooling off period at first, just for a little bit, and then he's begun up again? Because if he's murdered Peaches, she went missing in 97. After Victoria was born, new mother, lots of connotations around that as far as attention. A narcissistic psychopath would be receiving. We only need to look at Chris Watts. And let's not jump back on that island. I have left that island, thankfully, but we know what an absolute wanker, because in his interviews, he takes no accountability, the blame for everything, and even when he's acting like a twat to her, it's just excuses after excuses, and probably did not like a lot of the attention that went to his own daughters. And perhaps Rex Heuermann was the same. Yeah, you needed to get away from the madness, JK. Yeah. So, well, let's think about this. Let's think about who gets with a Rex. Do they choose someone as a beard, a cover? We wouldn't call them a beard, would we? Because that's slang for, it's terrible slang maybe, but it's the name usually it's maybe it's a Hollywood thing, isn't it, where gay actors, so people say Deborah Furness was Hugh Jackman's beard, to hide the gayness, okay? But that used to be the case a lot, but it's kind of strange that it has to be the case now, but people do what they do. Sorry, just give me a sec. Yeah. So it's interesting to think about Asa first before Victoria, because what something attracted Rex, okay, to Asa. Number one, she was petite and she would have looked young. Did she you don't know what kind of relationship they had, or was it just some sort of cover, or he felt like, okay, now I need something, a mask, because that happens. We know this happens, and wives are often just completely blindsided. They had no idea, and it's a very rude awakening. They suffer in the knowing. It makes a mockery of feelings that they had, because they loved and felt loved often. They thought they had a marriage, they have children, and with people, and then they find out that this person is a psychopath. He didn't love them, can't possibly have loved them. And wouldn't that really destroy your psyche in a way? Because it's like, how could I have felt that was real? How could I have had real feelings? What was I willing, but people are chosen very selectively by abusers and by predators, and they're chosen because of gullibility, or some need of their own that allows them to just say, hey, yeah, this is a mutual deal here. I kind of feel there's a mutual deal with us, or I feel like there's something dark. Funnily, well, not funnily, children of immigrants often have psychological issues. dissociative issues. They've suffered growing up with with being brought up with people who feel displaced, maybe who never assimilate, who it can be very depressive. And this is Asa. Who knows? I don't know. I would like to know more about her family. Her sister seems to have had a different type of life where, well, it appears a lot more clean and normal, shall we say, Asa lived in squalor. She had a husband that had another full-time job. He worked in the city in Manhattan, and he also had a full-time job as a serial killer. He wasn't there for the family. He wasn't present. He was a presence. He was probably a terrifying presence. I can't imagine that she is saying that she believes he's not capable of this. It's just, but we can't underestimate the power of the exemplary ability of people like Rex to manipulate. But he was a horror at work. It's so bizarre because he's clearly not someone that, he's not the person that go, what, him, he's so nice. No, he was not so nice, and still people are shocked. It's, humans are weird. So with regards to Asa, okay, so sorry. Yeah. I wanted to bring up a possibility. So when Rex and Asa, something connects them. They fuse on something, right? There's whether it's unconscious or not, or whether it's about because they're into swinging or not, whether it's because he is exerting coercive control, whether she's codependent, who knows, or whether she's not right psychologically, and she has made a deal and she's lived that life, and that's that. I feel there's something to be said about her. I don't know if this is true, okay, and I mean the New York Post published it. I don't know that it's, because this could be anybody, but there's a bird account, so let's just be real and call it Twitter. And Twitter, the Twitter account is Elvin Maiden, and totally cool with a K, Long Island, and it was opened November 2009, and I believe it was never used after April 2010. Fran, do you find those dates interesting, if you're still here, because I'm talking very slowly and boringly? Don't blame me if you go. And it says I'm into comic book conventions, things like that, right? Travel, planning vacations. So some of the entries, February 22, 2010. Time to plan a summer vacation. Where to go? In the USA. Ideas, anyone? February the 6th. I'm not in the mood to shovel snow. It sure is cold outside. January the 14th, 2010. San Diego Comic-Con's sold out. And she was lamenting that. Oh, well, I guess it's New York City next spring. 2 days after that, though, oh, I'm going to travel to Boston. So, hey, is someone suggesting, where you go and when? Hey, if that's fallen through, babe's not my problem. You're going somewhere. what else is on. And she did. And yeah, it's been, the interesting thing about this was it was reported that she did visit Boston at that time and go to a convention. So as could have another Asa Ellerap of Long Island, I know it. And I would say into crime con, you're into role play, you're into characterization. Elven Maiden is the name. This is someone from, is it the Elder Scrolls? And is this a character for Asa that she actually would even envelop her, escape into or use for some things? In the same way, her daughter, if John Ray is correct and seems to be about some things, it's the same way that her daughter is into the furry lifestyle, but also seemingly into going further than just escaping into a character, but it's become sexuality with furry porn and things like that. And the artwork that was shown, that was produced by Victoria and not just liked or reposted, etc., by Victoria, does seem to show a sexual a predilection for furry sexuality. It's wrong that her personal life has been talked about in that regard. We don't know what's created her interests in these things, abuse or just, exposure and things like that, okay? And what need was created by her upbringing, and to link her to her father's crimes, it's very, the sins of the father type thing. Is this ethical? Because the authorities are investigating. If they want to proceed with connecting Asa or Victoria, I guess they will. Sadly, I feel often though, families are considered to be suffering enough. I hope this is in the case of Madeline Soto, where, well, Jennifer's suffering enough, so we won't charge her for any of this neglect and anything else, or because they've got a lot on their plate, or they don't want to, I don't know. It pisses me off and at times. So I hope that's not the case here. But this is not John Ray's place. What is he trying to gain? What is he trying to gain by this, right? It's salacious, it's grandstanding, it's peacocking, pun intended, because he is very upset with Asa's $1 million deal with Peacock 50 Cents production conglomerate, and Victoria Heuermann has her own Peacock deal. I don't know if she's been offered $1 million as well. Hey, I guess they need to secure their future, but they could end up making a different type of documentary, couldn't they? But what they want is access, they want access to reactions and things as this whole thing unfolds, don't they? What was the point of the presser? It was a mess, says Fran. It was truly bizarre, but it's not unexpected from John Ray. This is just his MO, and it's not that he hasn't put in a lot of work and that he doesn't work tirelessly. You do need to question people's motives. He gives a lot of opinion as fact. He is calling all these Tumblr accounts and these sites that Victoria has liked and promoted, he's calling this circumstantial evidence. And Dr. B, look, I've always enjoyed Dr. B, so I will watch him on channels that I do not like. However, I will say this. Dr. B is also part of Cold Case Foundation. Okay? And let's leave it at that. So, some of the things that were, okay, so they have had their lives destroyed. This is what happens when predators are arrested. Their families' lives are destroyed, and they're also brought under a microscope. Their lives will never be the same. People want to know, was there any point where you could have stopped something? And your self-preservation was stronger, or your enjoyment was stronger, or your dissociation perhaps was stronger, your denial was stronger. What? We want to know, because it is hard for us to accept that people had no idea. We were not living those lives. And this is what I was saying at the start about we don't know what it feels like to be another human being and what feels real. We don't even know. You don't even know what color I see this as. How do you know that we see this the same? And I'm not talking about color blindness. How do you know what you hear? We know. It's, yeah. And how people experience things and what becomes normal, in family units. Yeah. So, but that drives us crazy because we want everybody to be held to account. We don't want them to get away with being poor citizens, with being people that we can't trust to live in society with, because society, that's how we manage to get on with daily life, is that we have to have a level of trust that other human beings in our community are living by certain rules. And the fact is that we don't know underneath what people's true morals and ethics are. We know when they get caught, but we never know. We don't know what people are thinking, what they really feel. Sometimes it's expressed through decisions they make and things they say, and other times it is not. And people with more, I don't know to say plain or normal or whatever psychology, find it very difficult to understand the complexity and how deep things go, and how dark things can be. And it's kind of in the same way that it's hard to understand that people can really feel truly wholly kind all the time or something. It's hard to maybe believe, if you struggle with always being kind, always being, managing to have self-possession so that you don't say awful things or something like that, right? And then other people seem to just be naturally more in control. Anyway, what am I saying? So she's very upset. Victoria has to be said, though, she's expressing, it's only really with coercion maybe, and over a course of time, that Asa has said anything about victims. At first she was saying, well, it is what it is. That's a direct quote. And Victoria is just expressing how devastated their lives are, how they've been turned upside down, how when she is talking about what has been, done to them, not feeling human. Now, is that because she's dissociating and she's struggling and she's having out-of-body experiences? I mean, you wouldn't blame her if that's happening, but you know, how Bob Macedonio, is it Macedonio, explains it as, well, what she means is what's been done to them is not even human. Not the victims, because, hey, but what was done to the victims was not even human, right? We know that. No. He goes on to say they were treated like animals. And he is talking about how Victoria is talking about herself and her mother and the brother, not about the victims. Now, that you would feel like that. You would feel utterly flayed, utterly disemboweled. You would feel exposed, vulnerable, raped. To have, if this is such a shock and out of the blue, to have people, you know, these authorities, your father's arrested on the street, and at the same time they're right there ready to go into your parents' home, and it is a hovel in the first place, let's admit it, but it's utterly destroyed and left in despair, chaos and despair, you know, chaos and wreckage. And that's what they're complaining about. Well, sure, you'd be devastated, and that would just make, wouldn't you, you know? And then they've gone in again and done even more damage, but she's worried about her Dungeons and Dragons things, her magic cards. I mean, this is a family into the esoteric, into the other, into the imaginary, escaping from human landscapes into other landscapes. This is true. This is fact. Comic Con. And Victoria is a furry by persuasion, it seems. Okay, it really does. We don't know, though. What I want to say in her defense is, with what they had to display in the presentation, let's not call it a press conference, was things that remained, things that she hadn't deleted. Were these things operated by Rex Heuermann, who did not have time after his arrest to take them down? Was he taking on his daughter's persona? You know, is there some fascination he's got with his own daughter because he's seen a young girl grow up? That's what I want to know. And was he acting as her? And was he the one that was promoting more of the sicker material, which is the EB Chimera and the gore archive of our own site, which, you know, is showing rape and CA, rough sex and cannibalism themes, all to do with sexuality, and all, you know, that's a possibility. And because why wasn't it taken down? Why wasn't everything taken down by Victoria? It's possible that Heuermann operated accounts as if her, or took them over. He worked with her, you know, they could have had access to all sorts of electronic devices and things together, and I really think it's a possibility. How, you know, but there's so many arguments we can make either way, okay, because ASA has been involved with food stamp fraud. Now, that might not seem like a big thing. These services are available for people who don't have resources. And ASA and Rex did have resources. Now, he may have been financially abusive, or he was actually, you know, I don't think he was as good with money as other people in his family were. And I think because of his focus being so strong, so powerful, so just suffocating and enveloping over his life, you know, he wasn't being the man. He wasn't repairing fences. He probably wasn't making good financial decisions. He wasn't setting up trust funds. He wasn't he wasn't taking care of things, like he wasn't in the home making the nice environment, he wasn't spending money on that. He was selfish. Maybe he did withhold to the point where Asa had to get food stamps, but she does have other resources. I'm sure it could have been something that could have been worked out. I'm really in two minds about that. If it's true, it shows that she does have a mind to deceive, that she has a particular morality or ethical nature that isn't aligned with what we expect in society. Although, you know, there's people that consider themselves good people, that is just a way of life. Oh, why not? Get what you can. Why not? It's there. Take it. Why make things hard on yourself, you know? Yeah. Anywho, that was yeah, I just wanted to make a video because I haven't made a video for so long. It's probably been 6 weeks, maybe longer, maybe a bit less, but maybe even longer. No idea. Over a month. And it's not that I don't have opinions on things, it's just I think about it and I think can't be bothered, or it's just, I don't know. I don't sort of, I hear things that really interest me. I think, oh, I've got something to say about that. And I don't write it down anymore. I don't make a little note and set out something so that I can sit down and make a video or go live and talk. And then I know it's going to be a batshit mess. Thanks, Fran. Thanks for being here. I mean, yeah, Rex was spending. It was a very unhappy house. He was spending money and using resources on his proclivities, on his serial killing. Okay, we don't know what he spent money on, but it wasn't going into that household in a way where, you know, a man who is caring for his family would do. I don't know. There's differing information I found on what Asa was doing and working, whether she was or not, what sort of professional she was. Can't remember if the Twitter thing said something or not. But I guess, you know, we have to take that with a grain of salt. But there were interesting things to do with it that kind of do connect with some fact that we know. But obviously, Elven Maiden could be anybody. But it does seem like the kind of thing a petite Icelandic person who swings might want to get into. It just seems to tie together with the family vibe, or, you know, with their interests, what their world is looking like, you know, the landscape of their lives and the atmosphere of their lives. And, you know, it's interesting to me. I do think there's more I want to know, but yeah, so, but John Ray should never have done what he did. If he had something truly explosive, he could have come out with it. Is this truly explosive? Well, hey, you know, it's lascivious, it's interesting, sure, and it satiates people, or actually it whets appetites, doesn't it? It whets appetites, doesn't damp them down, because, oh, now we know something and I feel relief at that and I can relax a bit. No, it drives people on, and he knows he's going to get a lot of exposure. He knows he is whipping up a frenzy, and is he right to target Victoria in this way? Does he truly believe what he's saying? There's always those, you know, he makes people make these accusations, but then they put those little disclaimers in, don't they? I'm not saying it's just this, but I'm not saying she did anything. But yeah, And then, Brucato gets on and says, well, 20% of serial killers work with accomplices. Future Brucato saying, well, that means that 80% don't. I think they are they're a family that, they're truly bizarre. They're truly a family with who have gotten into things. There's all sorts of things just from the soil that they grew in, the soil that this family grew in. It's only could have created who they are. And he's determined to blame the family. Why? Well, he makes a lot out of them staying at the house, but so do I. She's clinging on to those salt sprayed rocks, and for dear life. And I do want to know why. Who does that? Wouldn't you be homeless? To me, it seemed like, what is she guarding? The elven maiden, she's a small character, but in the scrolls, she is given tasks. She's given quests. If this is her, and if this is her mindset, if this is her, if this is the world she's living in internally, she's on, this is a task. This is she's been set this, and she has to achieve it. She's like the guardian of the gateway, keeping her children around. Perhaps they want to be with her to protect her. Perhaps she has drawn them in and said, we need to be together. But, Victoria seems to have the same desire to stay with that property, because I don't think she was living there full time, and now she's there. And then the son, well, as I said before, I think he was living in accommodations with carers to help support his needs, but probably staying with Asa and Rex some of the time. And I mean, is he oblivious? Who knows? He is challenged, and who knows what he perceives to be true or real. But he's been greatly distressed by the situation. Anybody would be, but you can't have sympathy for accomplices, even though those accomplices could have been created through heavy psychological abuse. And yeah, that's pretty much it, isn't it? Yeah, Gary's been copping flack, and Gary should have known he's been going to be copping flack, but Gary is starting to believe his own, I nearly said barge pole. Gary's been getting a lot of great press. He's really, people are really digging him, and he's on a lot of panels, and he's been getting a lot of lip service. I'm sure it was a bit of a shock Fran, to be judged. Well, this is what happens when these egos are huge. Everyone has ego, but I think his judgment was poor, yes, but he thinks he's involved because of something else. he maybe doesn't realize that he was there to he was there as a little bit of a tool of John Ray. He thought he was there because everyone admires his expertise to talk about serial killers, and he maybe didn't realize how it was going to be twisted. Can you believe that? I mean, this is a very bright person. He's not stupid. Yeah, he's everywhere, right? Well, yeah, how could he have been? Well, because ego lets your guard down, and you start believing hype, and you start thinking you are invincible. You start thinking you can, whatever you do, you've got a right to do it, say it, people are just going to take it, and it changes you, and this is what I was saying about, there is a plethora. It's like an epidemic of these men who are coming out of whatever career, and they want the slice of the tube, and they want to be they want their name made, and everyone is corruptible, or everyone has vulnerabilities too. So John Ray is slick. So, he makes a lot of very obvious mistakes, but he's clever. He's a manipulator. He's an attorney. He knows people. He knows how to get what he wants. And it's a possibility that, Brucato was blindsided a bit. But there's also a possibility that, Brucato just has had a bit of a slap in the face, a bit of a wake-up call, not to take for granted the good people on the tubes, not to take for granted their discernment, and not to think that everybody can be manipulated and mesmerized by you, and that we're going to have our own opinion, and that, he's not the be-all and end-all. And maybe he's just been humbled a little bit, even though we know, look, he's liked for a great deal, and a big part for how he appears. He has that sort of humble manner, and he really has some great insights. And of course, people love listening to him. I do too. But it doesn't mean that now he, power corrupts, and great power corrupts, absolutely, right? And the more power you get, the more corrupted you become. It happens to the best of people. And he could just be a little bit blind. He could be thinking that his slice of audience is the only that validating audience is the only audience. It's not the only audience that he has. Sorry about this light. And maybe he needs to snap out of it a little bit, take stock a little bit, and start being a little bit more cautious. Yeah. But there's tools all over YouTube, and I mean metaphorically and in the slang sense, colloquially, right? Because people getting used all the time, but often why they're being used. Okay, it's nice. Fucking sorry. Oh my gosh. It's naivety. I'll wrap it up. It's naivety sometimes, yes. Okay, you can be used. You can be used to tell someone's narrative, or support people that don't. What the f? And you can be used because you see who's going to give you what you can. You see a type of culture on YouTube will get you a slice of pie. It'll get you the audience. So you throw yourself in with the wrong people, and you get diddled because you didn't realize that they've been doing this longer than you and they are better at it than you. And I could think of one person in particular. It's not that that's doing it, is it? It's the... I opened it before because the light was so bad. You know, like, okay, so CJ, for example, okay, so yeah, he's that tall. And he's just gonna throw himself on, though, whatever train is gonna get him the audience and just get him, you know, this attention and everything. He's not changing his tune because of any new information. This is a big tell, okay? He's just changing it because the river's flowing another way, okay? And you know, he's made some bit, you know, now he needs to have another angle so that he can get the attention that he craves. So before it was the knot, and he got, you know, and he was totally into it. He's backpedaling so much about Richard Allen and all the things that he said about guilt and Odin and conspiracy and this sort of thing. But he's not because, oh, hey, you know, that's great that you can be given new information and you can process it and come out the other side and I changed my mind based on what I now know. That's something different. That is not what this guy's doing. Yeah, it's just a dick. Anyway, see you later. Thanks for whomever has come in. Now that I have made a video talking about that, as we get more information, we can try and work out what we think about it. But certainly, the family aren't making statements about, well, you know, they didn't come out and make statements supporting the victims and their families. Yes, you're devastated when this happens to you, but surely you, as a human being, you know that other lives have been taken and ruined, and that is why this has happened. It's all about getting justice for them. You are collateral damage. You need to somehow move on, but you don't only express woe for yourself and talk about how victimized you are and that you've been treated like an animal. And that's your overriding expression to the world, as well as making $1 million deals, right? So it does build up, evidence build up, the totality of things does build up, okay? Things that are circumstantial don't mean anything. It's not true. It is not true. I get sick of hearing it. It is not true that there is no such thing as coincidence in crime. That is utter baloney. But circumstantial evidence builds up, and what people look at is we look at the totality of, and that is when it becomes powerful and you can't dismiss it. So what we want to be looking at is the totality of things. You know, we do have, Asa has made decisions where she has committed fraud, and that does show that, you know, she's got a willingness and an ability to deceive, whether or not she wanted to. Now, we don't truly know why, but that is, what else has she done? And I do think we need to give the benefit of the doubt so far with Rex maybe being a financial abuser, because that's often the case, or perhaps she just likes to get everything she can as well. She didn't want to liquidate a house. She's divorced Rex. We could look at that one way or the other. Victoria has some very problematic things going on with her online presence that she had, but again, I'm not going to believe totally that everything was hers because it wasn't taken down. But it seems to be something that's not just in one aspect of her life, but more, because it's her magic cards, it's her Dungeon and Dragons things. This does seem to be a very enveloping lifestyle. And when you put that together with Mother Asa and things that she has interest in, these are, things that families share, okay? And you have to put it all together, and we just need to see what else adds up. But, has she seen things, and instead of being repulsed, is she just interested, or is she interested because she was already just so damaged? Because, she's grown up with a psychopath. Maybe more than one. We don't know. All right. Oh, thank you. I'll speak to you later. I do have other things I want to talk about in other videos, and I don't know if you'll want to, but we can just have chats about, what I've been watching, what I've been interested in is, I do want to know what happened to Seth Rogers, Sebastian Rogers. I'm so sorry. His father is Seth Rogers. His stepfather is Chris Proudfoot. His mother is Katie Proudfoot. Because, okay, so you can say, yes, but the dogs, they tracked only out to, the roadway, and it stops there. So clearly he went back inside after taking the rubbish bins out. But that just makes me ask the question, well, how did he leave the house then? So there's a lot of drama around that now, but, if he did go wandering, I do believe, look, there's a lot of places that haven't been able to be searched because it's private property. But I think it's likely, if he's just wandered off, I think it's likely he'll be found, just like the Evansdale girls were, Lyric and Elizabeth, quite the few months later at the changes of season, found by hunters. And that could happen to Sebastian. But, I do think there is the possibility of some sort of foul play. Again, it's just, it's just a frustrating feeling like, well, someone's not telling you the truth about what happened that night. There actually is no proof that Sebastian Rogers arrived home. So we know he was seen at the roadhouse, that's it. We don't have proof that he was home. It's just an assumption that he's gone missing from the house. And we only have Katie's word on that. We have Katie's word that it was him putting the bins out and things like that night. The other case I've been following is Madeline Soto, Floridian girl who was murdered by another demon named Stephen Stearns. Not her stepfather, not her mother's boyfriend. He's just a monster. He's a predator who came to her home with the specific purpose of getting his 13th birthday present from her. She'd just turned 13. He came to collect, and something's happened. But the reason why I am following that is because of Jennifer Soto. Over the years here on Humanimal channel, the Humanimals have discussed a lot of children in these family units that just did not keep them safe, that made very poor decisions. We talk about neglect and things all the time, and just the misery of these children's lives. And I really do not care for Jennifer Soto. A lot of the reason why people like her do not get charged is it's just another expensive case. They think they've got the murderer. That's a lot to go on. They feel like the mother, well, she's lost her child. She's suffering enough. does this account for all the people that are actually freaking sociopaths, who are so warped, again, serving their daughter up and just deranged themselves, just useless human beings. And are they really suffering? We make the assumption, well, they're suffering enough. Are they? Because again, we don't know. Remember, real person, this, that, and the other, me, myself, and I. Okay. We don't know. We don't know why someone is suffering. Sometimes they manage to express it and we believe them. Other times, we are just being fooled. And we project. We make it all up. We make up their suffering. We make it up without what we feel, our biases, because, we want to relate, or because we're kind, or we can't even possibly, it's not in our realm of experience to know how deep and evil some people really can be, right? So so Jennifer Soto, and of course Delphi. So Delphi, I mean, isn't it sad that there's more to talk about regarding creators than there is about Abby and Libby? Again, another person is quite right about right from the start, true crime design. She's trying to say that, oh, here's Brad Holder. They always cover themselves a little bit, but she knows how to get an audience. She knows how to grow an audience by giving these people that are here to be entertained in any salacious manner whatsoever what they want. So, here the kids are with Brad Holder. And that's already gone around the world in 80 seconds, hasn't it? It's a picture of someone from church. Who bears a passing resemblance through style and beard to Brad Holder. It's bonkers, isn't it? We're having Flora Week this week in our corner of the Delphi Flora community. I haven't managed to watch a lot of that, actually. Caught the end of something and a little beginning of something else. I'll go and watch a couple of them, but probably won't manage to. I rarely speak about Flora because of some of the things I would have to say. I mean, number one, yes, the treatment of those 4 girls when they're taken from that house is absolutely unacceptable. It's abhorrent. It's not procedure. Now, Yoda was suffering. He possibly could have died. Couldn't he wait for an ambulance? He did not have to be airlifted out. The girls' bodies, should have been worked on by people at the scene until they could be called in hospital. And that didn't happen. They did not get taken to hospital. Even if it appeared they were definitely gone. They're supposed to be worked on. They're supposed to be worked on until EMT get there. Then EMT work on there until they get them to hospital, and then they are called. Warmed and called is the saying, kind of. And that didn't happen. Instead, they were taken to the Flora fire station and laid out on the concrete. So, and I know it probably appeared that they were well and truly dead. They were in their death throes, poses, But that is not how to treat them. It is so disrespectful. Okay, they've passed and you've got someone that needs help and is still alive. They are human beings, and so that there's that, right? And there's, all the palaver around the events of the night. There's the palaver around the 911 call, and that is repulsive. That $30,000 or $35,000, whatever it was spent to keep that under wraps. Okay, that's repulsive. Not only because the county is poor and that money could have been spent on a lot of things, but those fat, white, middle-aged male councilmen speaking up about it. There's other people on that council too, older ladies and things. They, the sound bite is that we're deciding basically that no one needs to hear that. We don't want people to hear that. We're making the decision about what people can handle and not, what they should hear and not. It's not up to those assholes, okay? But for some reason, they decided that they wanted to keep that locked up, and they spent a lot of money doing it. This is an area that can't even afford to have their own 911 operator, so it's outsourced. People, do you realize that, right? So it's outsourced to a company and to run emergency services. And so, but there's also, and this is where it comes down to, people go, it's useless. There's no point. It's moot. It's cruel for cruelty's sake to speak up about, prevention. And, number one, we've got slumlords operating in that area. Of course, this was a slumlord house, right? That's true. And perhaps Galen Rose didn't feel like she had any power at all to say, look, I need you to bring this up to code. Sure. And she was a vulnerable person. She's a single mother, and she would have been on a very limited wage. However, now lots of people smoke weed. Lots of people feel like it doesn't affect them. They feel like it doesn't have any effect even after 20 years. And when you're around these people, they're fucking whacked in the head. Okay, I'm not saying that about Galen Rose. I'm saying that long-term pot users, and there goes my battery's going to go, yeah, on you, who, they are not on solid ground, and they start getting very strange ideas about things, and they're just not as careful as they can be, and they're really just living in a slightly other dimension. Okay, now that is a fact, and you can like that or not. I know a lot of people enjoy pot that are in true crime and watch it, and they even watch people are stoned while they're doing their shows, and it's just all sort of quite lightly and it's a bit of a joke, but it's not a joke, because when you've brain damaged yourself and when you've damaged your functioning, you don't see it. Other people do, but that's a slightly separate issue. What I'm saying is, buy the batteries for the battery alarm. If the landlord hasn't put them in, it's right there on the stairs. And if you're going to be passed out to the point where you can't, you're not going to be in a fit position to respond to things that might happen in your home, the sound of something, or fire burning, or maybe you set fire to something. We don't know. Okay, we don't know. And but do what you can. Do what you can to keep things safe. So I know I would be putting the batteries in the battery in the fire, in the smoke alarm, making sure it's working, because I know I'm living in a shithole, right? If I'm living in that house, it's been pulled down, but Oh, yeah, going out and everything. And you know what? You can black out. You're not aware of your surroundings. You're not making good decisions. And people smoking a lot of pot, or they take gummies or whatever. Oh, because it helps me sleep. Well, if you're doing that, you're knocking yourself out. You're not there as a protector for your children upstairs if something happens, because you're not in full capacity. Okay. Now, this is just topics. Okay. I feel that we can say, if anyone else says these things or thinks these things, but me, I can say these things because they are a fact. We don't know if they're a fact or. It was eventually ruled arson because some sort of accelerant was found. Well, where did that come from? How was it spilled? How did it get in there? Was the back door not locked? Is Mama not locking the back door? Would someone have risked breaking a window and making noise to get something in there? Was it someone with the key? Was it someone that knows that the back door wasn't kept locked? You know, that kitchen door, the side door? Yeah, Fran, drinking can be to help you be social. It can also give you anxiety, especially when you wake up the next day. Yeah, a lot of people self-medicate with drink. I'm a homebody too, but I don't really want to be. So, you know, these are things that can be thought of as hateful, judgmental. But, yeah. But, you know, so what is what was said in the 911 call? And it's easy to judge, isn't it? It's easy to judge. I feel like, well, I would have burned my face right off getting to my kids just so they didn't die alone. But you don't know. You're terrified. And what can you be expected to do? I don't know. I think I would have been trying to get up on that roof. I don't know. It's so bizarre. And so she's lost everything, and then again lost a lot of support because maybe she didn't feel safe. I don't know. Maybe let's face it, Galen was taken out of one universe, a universe where she had 4 girls. She had girls that brought light, life, spirit, a future of conversations, friendship, mothering, nurturing, support, grandchildren, seeing people go through high school, seeing her children graduate, maybe go to college, or maybe join a cheer team for, or, whatever the girls are going to do. But she's taken out of that world, and now she's in another one. And how do you live? She's in another dimension. She's in another universe. People that haven't lived through that wouldn't be able to fully comprehend what that's like. How do you wake up every morning, right? Whether that would go through your head, if that's going to be how life is if I don't get up there, and what's worth living anyway, I've just got to do it. I don't know. Or, but maybe that's why she went. I think, did she go to Florida? Or no, she went somewhere, and you never heard from her, right? And then insane baby mail started up. But yeah, so these things, it's so difficult to talk about because there's so many things wrong in that community, in that town, in that county, right? Same with Delphi. We know it. Look, it does. And that's something different again, though. That is absolutely something different again with the cannabinoids versus THC and all of that, Johnny, and, it can help, but it's people that talk about it that it's like, oh, it's medicinal, or I need it for this or that. They're getting stoned, and it does affect you. And there's this dullness, density, and a kind of a weirdness and a warpness, and that is the even if you don't feel like you get paranoid when you're smoking, there's a paranoid. I've just been around too many people. I've been affected by these people too often, and through and exposed in to it through work too much to turn my back on saying that it's, yeah, I believe what I believe. I've seen what I've seen. And yeah, so yeah, so it's a really hard one to talk about, but I have, hopefully all the creators that have made videos this week, gone live, have presented it, just in a really human-centric way, celebrating the short lives of the girls. I might get this wrong. Keone, Carolee, Kayana. Who can help me? I know, but I don't know. I'm so sorry. Carolee, Keone, Kia. Oh gosh, I feel terrible now. But and offering support to Galen. She's just in, how do you find meaning? How do you find the will to live? Okay, because it's like it's like she's in some sort of afterlife now too. Okay, so when I say the things I do, see, I can say these things. It doesn't mean I have no compassion, or I don't have compassion, or some skerrick of understanding. I do. And I know it's useless. It's to say, well, yeah, put the battery in. Don't get stoned and pass out. Don't leave your back door open. I don't know. Things happen to good people all the time, and people make mistakes, and we become lax, and we cope how we can, and self-medication is very real, isn't it? And we don't know what it's like to be in someone else's life. Yeah. And then Delphi, yeah, so and Delphi is just nuts. But I have had a lot to say about that, but I just haven't said it. Anyway, I'll fuck off because this has been 2 hours. My phone's going to die. I need something to eat. Thank you for being here, whomever is. Hopefully whoever comes in later and watches knows to play it on 2.0. And yeah, there's medical cannabis. It's completely different. Absolutely different. And is a painkiller. It does help pain, and for all sorts of ailments. Fibromyalgia pain, which is just some weird conglomerate of symptoms. And yeah, anyway, cancer, as Johnny said, MS, all sorts. But I'm talking about smoking weed, pretty much. Yeah. Long-term weed smokers have no self, what's the word? They just don't see it. Okay. See you later. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Bye.